Doug Weiss, once celebrated as a guiding light in counseling, a trusted figure in the world of emotional and relationship healing, now finds himself at the center of a scandal that is unraveling faster than anyone could have predicted. For years, his work at the Heart to Heart Center promised transformation, restoration, and hope. But now, former clients are coming forward with allegations that tell a far different story. One filled with manipulation, broken trust, and a pattern of behavior that has left many questioning everything they once believed. One accusation after another, the truth begins to emerge, and it may be far more unsettling than anyone ever imagined. The Christian community was stunned when renowned counselor Doug Weiss announced his divorce. For decades, he built his reputation on faith-based guidance for marriages, yet his own fell apart. Many saw this as a betrayal. How could someone who preached healing and commitment fail to uphold his own teachings? The shock deepened when Weiss quickly announced his engagement to Christian broadcaster Joni Lamb, raising even more questions about his integrity. As the controversy grew, so did doubts about his ministry. Was Weiss a man of faith and wisdom, or had the truth been unraveling all along? Doug Weiss's divorce and sudden engagement were just the beginning. As controversy grew, former clients came forward with unsettling claims, alleging manipulation, exploitation, and harmful counseling practices at the Heart to Heart Center. While Weiss was praised for his methods, some clients say they faced pressure, shame, and spiritual manipulation. Others claim his rigid approach prioritized control over true healing, leaving them more broken than before. The most shocking accusations suggest Weiss exploited trust, using personal struggles as a means of control. Now, many are asking, was he truly a healer, or was he building his empire at the expense of those he promised to help? As allegations against Doug Weiss began to surface, former clients started speaking out, revealing unsettling experiences that challenged his image as a trusted counselor. One of the most disturbing testimonies comes from a woman who sought healing, only to leave more broken than before. Her story is not just one of disappointment, but of deep betrayal. She came to Weiss desperate for guidance, hoping to reclaim a sense of safety and self-worth after years of being hurt by her husband's repeated infidelities. But instead of finding support, she found dismissal, pressure, and a counselor who seemed more concerned with keeping her husband satisfied than helping her heal. I went to Dr. Doug Weiss expecting help, support, and real therapy. Instead, I left feeling more traumatized than ever. He completely dismissed my pain, ignored my boundaries, and made me feel like I was the problem, when in reality, I was just trying to survive. This woman, who had endured repeated betrayals from her husband, sought guidance on how to heal, but instead of offering support, Weiss gave her an ultimatum. If you don't have sex with him, you'll lose him. Not validation, not understanding, just pressure, as if her only duty was to keep her husband happy, no matter how deeply he had broken her. But the most shocking details were yet to come. Her husband had engaged in unprotected sex with over 1,500 women, including family members, patients, and colleagues. Yet when she expressed concerns about his ongoing medical work, where he performed intimate procedures on female patients, Weiss's response was chillingly dismissive. Just don't be in the room when he does that. That was his advice, to simply remove herself from the situation, to pretend her trauma didn't exist. And when she begged for real boundaries, asking if her husband could step away from performing these procedures, Weiss shut her down again. You can't ask him to change his career. That's like asking him to change his eye color. A career compared to eye color? A man's job prioritized over his wife's safety, her dignity, and her need for healing. But it didn't stop there. Instead of acknowledging her pain as a natural response to deep betrayal, Weiss gave it a label, calling it intimacy anorexia. In his view, she wasn't distant because of trauma. She had a disorder. She was the problem, and she wasn't the only one. In Weiss's waiting room, she heard whispers from other women, sharing the same pain, the same dismissal, the same feeling of being blamed rather than healed. But then came the final betrayal. When she asked for a copy of the polygraph questions Weiss used in his office, he refused. He claimed they were his property, and then he threatened legal action if she pushed for them. Why? What was he hiding? And how many other women had been silenced in the same way? This is just one testimony, but it echoes the voices of many, and as more survivors come forward, one thing becomes clear. The truth about Doug Weiss can no longer be ignored. One story was shocking enough, but then another woman stepped forward, her experience even more devastating. A woman who put her faith, her marriage, and her future in the hands of Doug Weiss, only to lose everything in the process. Her journey began like so many others, with hope. She believed counseling could save her marriage, that Weiss's expertise could help them heal. Instead, she left with scars deeper than before. I first sought help from Dr. Doug Weiss and his program around 2007. At the time, I was desperate. My marriage was crumbling, my husband's behavior was destroying me, and I thought Weiss could help us rebuild. Instead, what I experienced left me even more traumatized. She had been with her husband since 2003. They married in 2004. Because of their religious beliefs, they never lived together before marriage. She sold her home, moved into his, and believed they were building a life together. But 6 months in, the cracks were already forming. Her husband was diagnosed as a sex addict, and for 10 years, she carried his secret, protecting him, hiding the truth, allowing herself to be seen as mentally unwell just so no one would know what was really happening. But the reality? Her husband was spiraling out of control. He was a compulsive masturbator. He sexualized women and even young girls in public. He drilled holes in the walls of their home to spy on her niece and her niece's husband in bed. Desperate for help, she turned to Weiss's heart-to-heart counseling, spending thousands of dollars on books, DVDs, and finally, a $4,000 couples intensive weekend. But what she got wasn't healing. It was a conveyor belt, pushing couples through the same steps, without truly listening to their unique circumstances. And then came the moment that shattered everything, a polygraph test. Weiss had her husband take a lie detector without ever consulting her, and at the end of the weekend, Weiss sat her down and delivered his verdict. Your husband passed. She knew it wasn't possible. She knew what her husband had done, but Weiss expected her to accept it without question. And when she didn't celebrate, when she didn't jump up and down with joy, Weiss berated her, pressured her, questioned her, all while her husband sat there, silent and victorious. Doug Weiss was a well-known Christian counselor teaching about marriage, purity, and faith-based healing. But now, serious accusations and his personal choices have divided the Christian community. Some defend him, saying no one is perfect. Others question how a marriage counselor couldn't save his own marriage or why he ignored the pain of those seeking his help. If these claims are true, should the church still support him? The Bible warns that leaders must be held accountable, James 3:1. Yet, many believe Weiss placed blame on hurting wives instead of unfaithful husbands. People also spent thousands on his programs, hoping for healing, only to feel worse. This isn't just about Weiss, it's a test for the church. Will it demand truth and accountability, or turn a blind eye? The allegations against Doug Weiss have shaken those who once trusted him. Stories of dismissed trauma, harmful counsel, and a system that seemed to protect the abuser more than the abused. These are not just accusations, they are cries for accountability. This is bigger than one man. It's about the culture of blind trust in leadership, the misuse of faith-based counseling, and the devastating consequences when victims are silenced instead of supported. The question now is, what happens next? Will the Christian community demand answers? Will those who suffered in silence finally be heard? And most importantly, will accountability be served? Or will this be yet another scandal that fades into the background, buried under the weight of excuses and justification? As more voices come forward, one thing is certain, this conversation is far from over. The truth will always rise. The only question is, will we listen? Thank you for watching. If you or someone you know has experienced something similar, know that your voice matters. And if you want to stay updated as more unfolds, be sure to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going.